Hey guys, today I want to talk about manifesting and where it all goes wrong. And I know if you're anything like me, that the topic of manifesting can be sometimes a little bit annoying. And equally, you know that there's something to that. And if you master that, then this could change everything for you in your life. And so, if you like the sound of anything related to how you manage your energy, then what are you waiting for? I would invite you to subscribe because this is where I talk about the habits and the behaviors and really just the lifestyle that you want to lead that allows you to optimize every element of who you are, which is your total being and as an energetic being, so that you can create big impact in this world and have harmony in all areas of your life that leads to your own personalized success. So let's start with what is manifesting. Not because you haven't heard of what manifesting is, it's just that everybody has their own definition. And I've come to realize that manifesting for me is really just about being intentional. And I like to simplify it to that because I find that manifesting now has so much energetic weight to it that I don't want to carry, that even feels like expectation or pressure. And that puts me off what I actually think is the beauty of manifesting, which is having a desire that comes to true fruition in your life. So, I want to talk more technically of what this process is of manifesting. Manifesting is you having a desire. A desire is something that you know that is a feeling of, I really want that in my life, whether that is physically, whether it's an experience, but you want something. And the actual reality of having that in a physical form or a physical experience is the manifesting process. And there is a process to it. There is steps that we take to go through those processes. And I want to talk to you about that today and I want to share it to you from the lens of the fact that I haven't manifested everything in my whole life, but I've manifested enough in the wrong ways to know where I went wrong with the things that I manifested that I just got I did so perfectly well. And I don't know about you, but I find in my life, one of my biggest ways of learning, unfortunately, has been through where I got it wrong. And then it worked out for me, and I understood deeply the difference between the two. So I think I first want to talk about a lot of my personal experiences of manifesting. So I didn't always look at manifesting as intentionally as I do today, but I was always manifesting. And I am a 4/6 in human design. If you're familiar with human design, if you're not, please watch one of my videos on human design. But I'm a 4/6 generator. So with the 4 line, it's really about working through our network and our relationships. And with the 6 line, we have this kind of role model way of living out life. But anybody that has a 6 line, they spend the first 30 years of their life like somebody that has a 3 line, which is basically like trial and error, figuring out life through experiences. And those experiences typically have a lot of contrast. So when you meet somebody that's a 6 line, usually, especially if you meet them after the age of 30 or 40, they have been through some shit. Let's just be honest. They have been through YouTube, don't police me, but they have been through it. And I'm a typical 6 line in that scenario. So what I would say is the first 30 years of my life, I was manifesting all the things that I didn't want. So when I think back into my early childhood, one of the biggest things that was the shadow of my childhood was that I didn't agree with the way that my mother parented. And, it takes me to be an adult and to imagine what I would have done in her scenario and to look at it very differently. But obviously, as a child, I just sensed a deep injustice in her parenting style. And I have a Libra moon and a Libra rising, so it's no, it's no shock really that that would be an element of my energetic body to feel injustice and to desire harmony for sure. But what that meant was that I would spend a lot of time sharing with her where she was wrong, where she could be a better parent, where um, where there was not fairness. And if you've ever been in a situation where you have been wrong or you haven't done something right, and maybe you know, maybe you don't know, but if you have somebody in your life that constantly tells you how you're a bad person, or you're not good, or you don't do things right, then you don't really want to listen to that person. You find a way to withdraw or shut off from that person. And essentially that's what happened to me. I spent the very, at least my until I would say until the age of 15, I would say I pretty much pushed my mother away. And none of us are perfect in this world, and I love to say about parents that they do the best that they can with the information that they had, and that really brings me a lot of peace. But the truth is, I know that in my behavior, so from the manifestation point of view, I did exactly the opposite of what I would want. Which in that scenario, I wanted a parent that wanted to spend time with me, that wanted to invest with me, that wanted to emotionally connect with me. But actually, I spent a lot of time sharing all the reasons why they weren't that person. And so, actually, I manifested that. I manifested exactly what I wanted. I manifested a parent that found it difficult to speak with me, found themselves very judged by me, and found that they would prefer to create space, um, or really get into very extreme, what I would say, extremely defensive and argumentative, um, confrontational conversations constantly in order to defend. And that doesn't mean that I did everything wrong. It also doesn't mean that my mother did everything wrong. I'm very vulnerable in sharing this with you, but it's because there's been so much healing there for me that I have clarity that makes it easy to just kind of say it is what it is. But I would say that that was my first kind of 15 years of what I remember the most of that life was manifesting more of this relationship. So I would say it comes as no surprise that when I came into my first deep, intimate relationship, which then ended up being my first marriage, it was no surprise that I had not learned how to get what I wanted through mm, the most harmonious ways. So I didn't believe that if I had a desire that I could just get it just by asking for it. I believe that I had it really built into me that there was a struggle that was required in order for me to have my desires. And when you believe anything, your thoughts become your reality. So I would say that my first intimate relationship had so much beauty to it, so much connection, so much love, and so much connection. However, one of the biggest challenges was, from my perspective, I believed that everything had to be a struggle to get what I desired. And so this was the conditioning that I was under. The conditioning from my early experience. We learn our first relationships through our parents or our first guardians. But then when I look at my career, my career was very much around me working extremely hard, being the typical type A high achiever, and trying to prove myself. And in trying to prove myself, that was because again I held these beliefs that working hard was how you got recognition and how you were successful. And so I manifested the type of environments where they would encourage me to work long hours, and they would encourage me to do more activities that required my physical body, and they would encourage me to measure how much of these activities that I did so that I could feel rewarded when I showed that I did, let's say, 50 sales calls or 10 client meetings or 15 interviews. And this was the environment that I manifested, which tapped into my beliefs, which was that work and success had to be hard work. I manifested an environment that literally measured, like on daily and weekly activity sheets, how hard you were working. I mean, I laugh at it now because it's it's positioned to you as a way of, this is how you get success. But actually, there's only a certain type of person that could feel that they were worthy by being measured in that way. So my work environment obviously reflected it. And then my personal health. My personal health, obviously, if you know my journey is one of burnout. And not just one burnout, but two burnouts. And, my definition of burnout today comes from this deep understanding that when you have a trajectory that of your soul's purpose, like what your soul came here to experience in this lifetime, the impact that it's here to create. And you are running on a different narrative because you have conditioning and limited beliefs and stories running through. And there comes a point where you may have accumulated the knowledge, the wisdom, the skills, the experience that you need to actually do what you came here to do, but you're still going a different path to what your soul wanted you to do. And that creates a lot of friction. And that friction that intensifies and becomes burnout. Burnout to me is this complete prevention of you being able to continue on the path that you are doing. And so that can show up physically, like your body is so exhausted that it doesn't have, you're not given the energy to move forward. It can be mentally, where, a lot of people will have that, I can't think about this anymore. I'm done, I'm full. It can be emotional burnout, like you literally feel like inside of you, a part of you is just dead or numb or not alive anymore. So it comes in different ways, but that burnout to me that happened not once but twice was the manifestation of me continuing to use my body in a way that was not at the highest expression of itself, because it was running it by the belief, and it was manifesting more and more things um that confirmed the belief that I had to work hard, not smart. So it attracted staff that I couldn't trust. It attracted environments like working in hospitality and running a restaurant that would be physically demanding on me. It attracted people that would not emotionally be present for me. And all of that was based on my own belief systems. So this has been kind of the journey of that first 30 years where I was manifesting everything that I believed, that my brain had come to understand was its truth, but wasn't really the sole expression of my truth, of my life, and what the intention was for my life. And then I would say between 30 and 35, I entered my deep healing era. That deep healing era involved also the second burnout. It also involved my divorce. Um, and it involved a lot of deep introspection with myself, and mainly through travel and studying with the indigenous, that allowed me to connect the dots of why everything was happening and what the roots were to all of this. And for me, that went on for quite a long time, about 5 years. And I think it took 5 years because probably the experience typically of a sixth line is that you have so many different experiences that are contrast, that even when you have got an awareness of where you're going wrong and how to do things differently, it also takes time to course correct. Like, you've got habits, right? So to change those habits, like, I don't know if you have, like, a habit that I used to have was watching TV before I went to sleep. Or in the morning, a habit was checking my phone and lying in bed and watching. I mean, it took a long time for me to break those habits, even though I learned very quickly they were not going to be good for my sleep. So we all have different paths to our own healing. And sometimes, you're going to meet practitioners, or you're going to meet a modality, and that people swear this is the modality that heals. But the truth is, it will heal that person in their path at the right time. And it may heal you in a different season or a different time, but it might not be the thing that you need now. And this is actually, funny enough, why I feel like my work is so important, because one of the biggest parts of my work is to connect the dots for people, is to not look at their life through just their personal or just their professional, just their health or just their relationships, just their business growth or just their relationships. Is to look at how does it all connect? Like, what is the thing that they're not seeing that's connecting all the patterns? And so the 30 to 35 for me was this age, was the time when I went through this deep understanding, but also this deep shift in trying to learn how to change the habits. Clearly, don't change overnight. But what I've experienced since the age of 40, which really is now coming into that latter period of the sixth line, right? So sixth lines tend to find their peak at 50. So I have a lot of goodness still to come, but I started to realize that this feeling of having burden and challenges happen to me started to lessen. I started to notice that more good was coming, and the compound of my beliefs was starting to show up every day. And through this, I also started to realize that I could influence it. I could influence by, for example, by asking myself a question of, what am I supposed to learn from this? I could influence how I felt about issues that were happening to me. So when I finally realized that I needed to let go of my business, my restaurant business, I knew that it didn't matter how it came to me, that there was a date that would be my end period. And when I manifested my buyer, I when that buyer came, there were some really challenging questions to ask of the sale. But because I was asking myself, what am I supposed to learn from this? I absolutely knew everything was happening for me. And I absolutely knew that the buyer had come along because I had made a complete decision that that restaurant would have closed at the end of that year because I wasn't going to continue in that line, that path of what it was doing to my body and my health. So it, in order to move forward in a way that was more peaceful for me, I had to ask myself these bigger questions. And it meant that I could start looking at everything as an opportunity. I could start asking, for example, the buyer for what I wanted in the sale that was going to be beneficial for my future. And so I then started creating the future that I wanted by being an active participant in intentionally asking for my desires. So then I think about the work for me. I think the restaurant was the biggest part of the start of me intentionally creating the life that I wanted. Because after I sold the restaurant, I had a long period of time where I could just invest in my own healing, and I had more quiet, less noise, and less responsibility, if I'm honest. And financially, um, and I would say emotionally, I was in such a better place. And I think that I had this space to be able to think about and craft what is that life. And I started to see that I really needed a lot of freedom geographically because I'd learned from the restaurant that I felt really trapped. I learned that freedom was actually one of my biggest values. I learned the integrity of people and, really being with people that do what they say they're going to do is important. I understood how important my health was to me. I understood how important like my growth personally and professionally and learning more and growing and expanding was to me. And I understood how important relationships were to my growth and my success. And I think that was the very start of me start creating the visual. And it's so funny actually. I look back now because I started creating with my women's mastermind group vision board workshops, and I started to really craft what that life looked like. And because I started crafting what that life looked like and I had a vision board, I started to see how it was happening. I started to see, I remember the vineyard that was on my vision board. I remember the first time when I found myself on this beautiful holiday adventure, and it ended up that his family were in the wine business, and I got invited to pick the grapes of the season before they start to produce the wine. And I remember looking at my vision board and going, oh my God, I put vineyards on my vision board. And I don't know why wine had been such an important part of my upbringing, my holidays in Spain, all of that. And I put vineyards as that. And I remember one of the trips that I did, and we ended up going sailing. And I remember I had a sailing boat on my vision board, and all these beautiful things that were just amazing. But I understood that it was me being intentional about what I wanted could really affect the energy. So now what I want to do is I want to talk to you about the clear steps that I have come to realize are the parts of why I moved into knowing that I could manifest what I wanted. And even if it doesn't come immediately, trusting the process of that, because I could see very clearly how you do it. And the first step is like understanding that you have a desire, and the desire is from your heart. So there are desires from your mind, and those are influenced by your experience. Your experience are from your first parents or your first guardian, should I say, which could be your parents. It could be from your teachers. It could be from your culture or your religion. Your desires from your mind could be from books that you've read, podcasts that you've listened to. But notice it's all external authority. In human design, we talk about inner authority, the part of you inside of you that helps you to make decisions, and it's more somatic. So I have the gut, the sacral is the inner authority. So I get that gut feeling. For some, it's splenic, that's more intuitive led. For some, it's emotional, right? So this part of you that you have to know is a part of you that is a desire that's coming from the heart, the soul, the deepest part of you. It's not from the mind. It's not from what you're supposed to do. You may think that you want to be a doctor, you want to be a lawyer, you want to be, now it's going to be very different, now you want to be an AI expert, or, you may think that you want that, but how much do you really believe that you want that from your soul and not from your conditioning of your environment? And so when it's from the soul because it's so deeply, it's so deep that you feel drawn to it, that you might not know how you're going to do it, but you just know that would feel amazing. So the first is knowing your soul's desires. Like when I moved through this transition, I knew that one of the biggest soul's desires for me was I need to meet a partner that can really meet me at the level of where I'm at, the strength of my character, the the adventures that I want, the growth that I want to experience, the abundance that I wanted in my life. Like I knew I couldn't settle. I knew I needed physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual connection with somebody. It wasn't enough just for them to look good. It wasn't enough for them to be rich. It wasn't enough for them to be healthy. I needed everything. And when I would explain this to people, they would be like, yeah, maybe you're asking for too much, but this was my sole desire to have this kind of relationship. So that desire, you will know when it is really soul led. You will not question it because when it's from the heart and so deeply your soul, there is no questioning. The second part was to take action. So there are things that you have to do. Manifestation is not, oh my God, I desire, let me sit cross legged and meditate. You have to take action. Action actually is the ability to apply energetic force behind something, to create momentum with your energy. So the more intentional, that's why I see manifestation as just being intentional. The more you're intentional about something, you think about it more, you do more of it, you take behaviors. So think about it. In my work, I'm intentional about supporting high achievers to have success in every area of their life. So I have to put myself in environments where high achievers go to. I have to go to networking events. I go to a lot of big fitness events. I go to a lot of entrepreneurial events because those are things that high achievers do, competitive events. Then that is me taking action. When it comes to my health, I want to be in the top 10% if on all asterisks, all metrics, all measurements of my health. So I have to work out as a minimum. I have to do resistance training to build that amount of muscle. So that requires me to do that at least 3 times a week. I want to stay flexible in my body. So I need to do flexible exercises at least 2 times a week. I want to keep a certain standard of cardiovascular activity. So I have to walk a certain amount of steps or get my heart rate up for a certain period of time. So these are activities that I have to do in order for me to be in the top 10% of my health metrics. When I think about my relationship, I want to be in a conscious union where we're growing and expanding together and we're creating impact in other people's lives. We're giving our energy in a way that elevates people. We are creating opportunities for people. And we are curious about each other so that we can keep on growing. And in order to do that, I need to put aside my ego sometimes. I need to decide which battle am I going to fight. I need to invest in Matt's uh, growth or his ambitions and his desires. These are actions that I have to take. Being present, attending certain things. This is just things that you have to do. So this is the part of the actions that you take that are aligned to the desire. And then the third part, which I just think is really beautiful, is actually just to speak into reality, is to talk about the things that you desire. And, I love Kabbalah, and in Kabbalah, we talk a lot about the early seed and how you really protect that early seed. A bit like when a woman is pregnant, those first 3 months, you're encouraged not to share about it because evil eye, and really to protect it, just like a plant. when the seed is first planted, you need to really make sure that it's got enough shelter from harsh environments or harsh weather conditions. It needs water, it needs fuel, it needs the right conditions in order for it to strengthen itself. And so, even though your desires are things you should talk about, there is a point where you're taking the action and your communication around it is only on those people that will affect those actions. So the people that are involved in you taking those actions for the desire. Then after a certain time, you become more vocal about it. Like if I want to create impact and support those people that are, I feel I can create such impact on this world, who for me are typically a lot of the high achievers. I know that I need to share this message with them. I need to record my videos so I can access them in different forms and not just in person. So this is me speaking about it, speaking about my own experience, sharing that and speaking it into reality so that I can help people, that I can help people have success in all areas of their life because I believe it's possible. And I believe that a big part of my soul mission is to deeply penetrate people with messages that shift them, that transform them, that elevate them so that they can then elevate other people and their environments. And there's a ripple effect that happens in this world. And it creates that kind of harmony that personally is for me is what I want so that I can experience more inner peace, more joy in this world because my environment, which is surrounded by other people, is more harmony. So the speaking into reality, and we talk a lot about this in human design, because in human design, part of the chart, when you look at your visual body chart, is to how do we get energy to the throat chakra? The throat chakra is the chakra of communication, but it's also the place of manifestation. Just think about it. How can you have anything that you desire if you can't speak about it? Imagine saying, I want to eat, I don't know, eggs and bacon for breakfast, but never speaking to anyone about it, never ordering the food, never speaking to the delivery person, never being in a restaurant where someone can serve it, asking for what you want off the menu. Like it's not possible. Even the most outrageous um, manifestations and creations in this world, like being able to fly to the other side of the world, somebody had to believe it. Like an engineer had to believe that a plane could be made and could fly across the sky, you know. And but then they had to believe it and talk to people that never could imagine it, never could believe it. And they had to hold that frequency and still speak it into reality until it existed, until the engineers showed up, until the servicemen are created, until other designers could have that vision. And so I encourage you in this last area to, I think it's the missing piece. I think is once you know the desire and you're absolutely sure you're taking applied actions, is to think about who do you need to speak to create this into reality. And so I hope that this has encouraged you to think about not just where does it all go wrong, but what am I not doing that's not allowing me to manifest what I want? Because it is manifesting, like my first 30 years, it's manifesting what I don't want. And I know on this journey, as I still continue to manifest the wealth that I want to create in this world, the impact that I want to create in the world, and take my relationships to the next level, I feel that having this level of clarity it creates an ease that allows you to get those things so much faster. Because if they're not coming up for you, if they're not showing up for you, if you're not manifesting whatever it is you want, the health that you want, the relationship that you want, the amount of money that you want to make, the difference in your business you want to make, there could be a timing for why that isn't. But if you want that timing to shift so you can collapse timing for that reality to happen to you quickly, you need to know which steps are you not applying. Because within all of this, there is a level of faith, the faith that you know that you can have it, but there is still applied actions. And as you see, these three areas of literally having the desire from your heart and knowing that it's a heart desire, not a head desire, you need to take action and you need to speak it into reality. So I really loved sharing this with you today, and I would love to hear your own experience of manifesting, your own thoughts and comments around it. So do share those with me in the comments below. And I always say, make sure you're on my newsletter, because that's where I really can give you my personal experience of auditing every area of my life and how that looks like day to day. And I find that it's because I can be a little bit more vulnerable there and just sharing this is my life and this is what I'm experiencing. It helps you to really shift in areas where you need those aha moments. So I hope you've enjoyed this as much as I've enjoyed sharing, and I will see you on the next one. Take care.